Hey, Michaela,
Yes, Matthew.
last episode we talked about Ghost.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this episode's not exactly about Ghost.
I think the name Ghost Town should imply the existence of ghosts.
Maybe, maybe not. Let's dig into these towns and see what's up. So, Michaela, we talked about Roche Harbor, we talked about weird San Juan stuff last episode, and we talked about a ghost for a long time, but this episode's about ghost towns. Washington is filled with ghost towns, and it's kind of weird.
Is it because people move in industries that then become bankrupt and then abandon their, not to spoil the plot, just abandon what towns they build up once the factory closes?
It's almost like extractive capitalism is a bad model for building your entire housing markets around.
Listen, I really like the idea of a ghost town. I want to go to one.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm excited to know that there's ghost towns near me because when I think of a ghost town, I think of like New Mexico or Arizona.
When I used to live in Arizona, there were a lot of ghost towns. I mean, they were everywhere. Like, you would find remnants of houses in the middle of nowhere, and you're like, oh, a town used to be here. So, you were in California, so you didn't get the good opportunity to see a lot of ghost towns, because a lot of those towns people still just live in.
I think everybody occupies as much space as possible in California.
They said, if I can own 1,000 acres, I will.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here in Washington, we have a similar situation to Arizona, especially in the different phases of settlement of the state. I have to emphasize, it's not settlement if people already live on the land. I
don't know what you're talking about. Nobody was here before.
It was a blank map.
It was empty.
There were no people.
There weren't even Canadians.
There were no French, Russians, indigenous, or just, people who just moved here before other settlers came here. No one. No
All
one.
Oregon Trail all day,
Oh,
baby.
my goodness. So, yeah, Washington has a real weird history with ghost towns. And it goes back to the 1800s or the mid 1800s when our state was settled. But we have a couple of, archetypes. And I think it's funny because we talked about Roche Harbor and how it was a company town. Well, the threads through our podcast probably will run very deep in many of the stories we're telling because it is the history of our state.
I feel like Washington cities and towns are founded for one of two reasons. One, it's a port town.
Yep.
And in the gold rush, that was very important, especially when going to Alaska. And two, it was a company town.
Right.
I don't think there's an in-between.
There are a couple other categories, but it's all very similar, adjacent to the thought. It's still extractive, if that makes sense, but it's not extraction, if that makes sense. Washington has, like you said, company towns, a lot of company towns, railroad towns, and a lot of our towns that we have now are still railroad towns that were built back in the 1800s when the railroads were coming, actually all the way to the 1950s when the railroads were coming through. We also have a lot of mining towns, which is like, you don't think of Washington and you think, oh, coal mining, but it was very popular in the state.
No, you have recently turned me on to the fact that there is a quarry just, 30 miles south of us in Skagit County?
Yeah, and it's just right off the mountain, and it's just like an open mining pit where people can go mine.
Which is really odd to me to find out because I grew up in a fairly rural high school, and a lot of those people that I went to high school with went on to perform labor jobs, blue-collar labor. So some of them went on to the railroads and stuff, construction work, that sort of things. Not a single one in the quarry.
Yeah, and we have a lot of quarries here. I mean, even where I live, or where my family lives in Whidbey Island, we have quarries in multiple places. So it's a very common job here in Western Washington. Another thing that is a byproduct of company towns, we had company towns that were mono-ethnic or were multiple ethnic groups, but they were like only there for a job. They weren't there because like they love Washington. They were there because there's a job, and they may be from like Kentucky, and they're all like black people who end up working in coal mines that then go on strike, and then they shut the whole town down. To be continued. But you find that a lot in Washington's history as well. And then you find something that's...
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
When you say mono-ethnic, do you mean ethnic or do you mean white?
No, I mean ethnic. Like,
okay.
Not white people. And not mixed either.
Yeah.
So there'll be like 100 Polish people in a town. And it's just like, yeah, because they all got hired at the same time from the same town and moved over to Washington to mine or do something like that.
A million Dutch people in Mount Vernon where they can...
Or Oak Harbor or northern Whatcom County because they're all swamps.
So they can plant their tulips and sell them across the world.
We love our dikes and we love our tulips.
Hey, they're our worst. I like the Dutch, so they're okay.
Hey, shout out to one of my friends, Sage, who told me that when she went to high school here, the expression was, if you're not Dutch, you ain't much. And then another thing that Washington is very famous for is government projects. Big, especially around the 30s and the 40s and the 50s, during the Great Depression and the Second World War. In the end of the Second World War, we have a bajillion towns just spring up out of nowhere to build these giant projects like dams, nuclear test sites, army bases, things like that. All great things to live in when you find out that they have been testing plutonium right around the stream. And the problem is that they depopulate. You build all of these buildings, whole towns, city centers, and they just disappear. All the people go. There's no business. There's just no point of staying because there's no money and everyone's there for money. So why would you stick around or be there for, 20 years?
So how many ghost towns do you have a number of how many ghost towns there are in Washington?
There's somewhere between 150 and 200. And
do the majority of those ghost towns reside in what we would call rural mountains? I feel like I've seen...
yeah.
I feel like I've seen when I'm going on Cascade Highway.
Yeah.
Which is closed 6 months out of the year whenever there's snow. Yeah. So it's not very accessible.
Right.
So you're going across the Cascades to get to Winthrop. And I feel like there is a very small town, I don't know the name of it, that is on the dam.
New Halem.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I feel like that's on the verge of a ghost town.
Yeah, the only reason people live there genuinely is to serve at the dams. That's literally it. It's the last stop.
Yes. And so I am imagining that most ghost towns in Washington fulfill similar spots in our landscape where they're up in the mountains and hard to access 6 months out of the year.
Yeah, that's actually pretty accurate. One town that I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about, but its name is Weston. It was here on the western side of the state, and it no longer exists because a river flooded it and washed it away.
Nice.
So there's stuff like that where the maps of a town or of an area, this is in the Tacoma area, it just isn't there anymore. The river just took it and never... There was, if you ever go swimming in these places, your foot will get grabbed by a broken house roof.
Our own Lake Lanier.
We have our own Lake Lanier, folks. All around, there are a lot of them. I mean, Sumas is literally built into an old lake bed up here.
We live up here in Bellingham where the entirety of Ferndale is a drained lake.
Right.
So
Right, exactly. So just a town like that, and And one of the reasons why a lot of these towns shut down, honestly, is because of Washington's legacy of being a frontier state. This is a frontier. This is the closing of the frontier. 1890, the last little bits of Washington, California, and Oregon get bought up. People come for the gold rush and they go to Alaska, which is the new frontier. And you can't do the things like you used to do back in the 1800s, the 1880s, the 1870s. You can't treat people the same way.
Yeah.
As you find out later in this story.
I don't think it might be a little bit more frowned upon to drive out the indigenous populations from their homes.
Right.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. So, I'm going to jump into some of these towns that I did some research on and tell me how you feel about them.
Oh, I'm sure I'll love them.
This one is called Alpine in Skagit County.
Close.
Yeah, it's pretty close. Hot Springs. This is one of those, like...
Oh my God, we have hot springs?
We have lots of hot springs, actually, in Western
can
Washington.
we go?
No. You do not want to go to this place. There are hot springs to go to, and we can look it up later. But Hot Springs, Alpine, Skagit County is in... It's closer to the mountains than it is to Mount Vernon. Mount Vernon, I'm just, to anyone who's listening, Mount Vernon is on the I-5 corridor. It's literally a big valley. It's the final stop of the Skagit River before it heads out to the Puget Sound. You can type it in a map in Google Maps and say Mount Vernon, Washington. It's right there.
It's an hour north of Seattle,
Yeah.
who... if anybody's listening from outside the state, is the only point of reference you may have.
Right, that's true. Sorry, the townie here. Like, oh yeah, it's just like, and it's the Skagit River.
He said it's across the bridge from
down the hall,
Deception Pass.
Go around the bend. There's two bridges. You go down SR20. But it was a town that was meant to be a resort town. There are two.
Sorry, Mount Vernon or...
Oh, no.
Alpine. Okay.
It was supposed to be a retreat, and they put a hotel there. But as time went on, it was harder and harder to maintain. People didn't come. They built the SR system, the state road system, for our non-Washington citizens and listeners. And they built the state road going to concrete, not going to this resort, and it just had to shut down because...
Do you know that this is the plot of Cars?
It is. It totally is. Like, Cars kind of, like, summed up a lot of American towns, which is hilarious. Isn't it the town in at Radiator Springs?
Yes.
That's the name of it? When I was reading this, I was like, this is Cars. But you'll find that happens a lot in Washington. Like, once they build I-5 up here, it completely changes the ground game here.
I don't think it's an uncommon experience across the country.
Yeah.
Once the interstate systems were built.
Well, the state road system, even for us, was like, ooh, fancy. Like you were just describing the old Chuckanut Highway. The old Chuckanut Highway literally was the only way there except by way to Bellingham besides for ferry, because going across the Samish and the Skagit River in the 1920s was dangerous.
And for our listeners, when he says you were just talking about Chuckanut Highway, he means like 3 weeks ago in real life, not on this podcast.
No, you listed it like near ghost towns.
I said Cascade Highway.
Oh,
that's different.
That's a little bit different. Yeah, you're right. It's the different spur.
You didn't miss me saying
she's right.
You don't have
she's
to rewind.
Right. She got me. But another town that propped up for Hot Springs. Hot Springs was a very big business in the 1880s, in the early 1900s.
Are these like hot springs that you can actually sit in? Or are they like Yellowstone hot springs?
No, they're like water that you can sit in hot springs.
They don't have like sulfur bubbling.
Absolutely. So
they absolutely don't.
They don't have that.
Oh,
they're sanitariums. They're used to like relax, and people used to go there to treat their tuberculosis. So, I got consumption.
Arthur Morgan.
I don't have much time. So they call this place Green River Hot Springs. It's in King County. It is a ghost town. It's off of the Green River area.
Wait, so we moved on from.
Yeah, we're
Alpine.
moving on from
Okay.
Alpine. Alpine shut down because of the road being the wrong place.
Is it named Green River for the same reason, meaning it's in the same area
It's
as
off of, that's where the
of
Green River
Gary
water
Richmond.
comes. Yeah.
Green River?
It's up the
Killer?
mountain from where that water goes to.
Okay.
Yeah. That's why it's like Green River Hot Springs, because it's like up on the mountain ridge where the water goes down. Because of all the volcanic activity, we have hot springs. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, makes sense.
It was originally called Kindon because it was built by the North Pacific Railway in 1886. The hot springs was one of the first large sanitariums built in Washington for people with tuberculosis. It was, by 1907 to 1908, big enough to house 225 people and 2 doctors. I have to remind everyone that the population of Washington in 1900 was like 1 million people. Like, it was like very small population for a whole state. So when people think like 200, that's not that much. It's like, it's a lot for back then. Generally, there just was less people back then because of things like tuberculosis.
Yeah. And this is, I'm assuming, the point of history where people thought the cure to tuberculosis was to send you out into the mountains.
Absolutely.
So you can get fresh air.
Yes. They thought you go to the hot springs, you go to the steam, your lungs will get better, and you can come back. It totally treats your tuberculosis.
Yeah.
No. I mean, it might help in the immediate, but it's not going to...
I see
Cure.
the logic.
Yes.
It's a good idea. They didn't know.
It's better than living in the desert or, like, in the south.
It's a virus, right? Or a bacterium?
I think tuberculosis is a bacteria, I want to say.
Okay.
That's
So
why you
maybe
use
they could boil the
antibiotics.
bacteria out of the hot springs.
Yeah, maybe. The sanitarium was reported to be an impressive facility, having nice suites, a bowling alley, and a pool table. A 1904 envelope has a return address, the Clover, I don't know how to pronounce it, it looks German. J.S. Clover, M.D., Green River Hot Springs. If you look, and there used to be postcards from it all the way in the back of the 1910s, but the sanitarium burned down in 1913, and then everyone left because they discontinued the post office. And I'm going to show you a picture of it, Michaela, so you can see it.
This sounds like, this is pretty.
It was a beautiful building.
Too bad it burned down.
Yeah, fire is a real danger back in the day.
Imagine you just have a mansion. So you're telling me that this was a tuberculosis ward and there are no ghosts in it?
I mean, they're probably ghosts now with the fire. You believe in that?
Yeah, and a fire burned. Were there fatalities? In the
I
fire?
didn't see any reported, but I would think that it probably is. Probably could have had some people die. It's a big building, so if if it breaks out, the fire breaks out in one spot, it gets everybody. It's a pretty spread out building. So that is one example of a ghost town. And the remnants of this town are still around, like the burnt building pieces and like little signs that a town used to be there, but nothing much now. Besides, a couple pieces of wood or a beam here or there. It is cool that we have hot springs. I wish that we really tapped into that a little bit more, but
Yeah, we could be like that guy that you always quote from the New Zealand ads. Try something new, New Zealand.
come on, Washington, try something new.
Yeah.
There are no words. Django Fett, that's who it is, yeah. Now, I want to talk a little bit about company towns, because these weren't really company towns. These were more like people setting up clinics, trying to help people. Very rare of that time period, people trying to like actually do things that were like medical. But that's one example, or two examples of it. Company towns are a different beast, and we talked about like why they're vicious. Roche Harbor, New Halem, Diablo Dam. the Seattle City Light villages that they set up at the top of mountains.
Do you
where
know
people
that
live.
there's a company town right near us, or at least a company neighborhood?
I believe it. 100%.
Yeah, there's sometimes when you're on Zillow and you're looking at homes, there'll be like this absurdly cheap one, and you're like, why is this such a good
'Cause it's
deal?
owned
And
by
it's because it's
someone.
a company.
It's
You have to work for the company.
That's
order
very normal, by the
to
way.
own or rent this house.
That's a very normal thing that we're getting back. You know, we're just gonna get the Pinkertons back too. You're gonna get paid script instead of.
We're gonna have I don't know, because we're having a tech fall right now.
Yeah, right.
The bubble is bursting a little bit in tech. But I could see a future where Amazon has company towns.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And they're all, it's like straight out of like dystopia fiction.
Right.
They all are white, no color, all look the same. It's not far off.
It's not far off, not here especially. But I'm going to introduce you to a little town in Snohomish County called Monte Cristo.
That's a fun name.
It is a fun name.
Named it after a sandwich.
A delicious sandwich. And a really good book. The count from that book. But Monte Cristo was a mining town on the western slopes in Snohomish County of the Cascade Mountain Range. There were 13 mines and 40 claims by 1891. By 1893, there were 211 mining claims. It was a boom. A mining boom.
Oh, that's a pun.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I see.
The boom was so big in this area that it required the financing of John D. Rockefeller. Yes, that John D. Rockefeller.
I love him. He did so much for us over here.
If you have ever been to the town of Everett, there is all the downtown buildings and all the county buildings are on Rockefeller Avenue. And it's because Rockefeller dumped a stupid amount of money into Western Washington, especially Everett, because of this gold mine. He thought he was going to get paid back everything he put in.
He did not.
He did not.
There's not enough gold here.
Fact, he did not get any money that he put in. And they were trying to court him. They'd be like, we're going to change the name of the building for you, Mr. Rockefeller. And he's like, fuck you. I lost my investment here. It's such a good, like, people just simping for companies and then companies being like, no, I'm good.
East Coast money has to stay on the East Coast.
His syndicate, who was run by two guys named Colby and Hoyt, took over the primary mines, including Pride and Mystery Mines. The Willman brothers were paid $470,000 by Rockefeller's company to acquire controlling interest in two-thirds interest in the properties. You know who appears in this story, Michaela? A blast from our not-so-distant past.
Are we talking about my guy? I don't remember his name. I know we just talked about him. The Roche Harbor guy?
No, not the Roche Harbor guy. I wish.
Oh. Well, now I'm not invested.
The grandfather of our 45th president, Frederick Trump, arrives in Washington to set up a hotel business and a brothel. The apples really don't fall far from the tree here.
Remember when I said East Coast money has to stay on the East Coast? There's no Trump Hotel in Seattle, though, so did they, like, just...
It lost money. They cut losses.
Cut losses and left.
So, they all showed up for the mineral wealth here in Western Washington. And I have to remind people who don't know anything about mining is that there's multiple types of mining. There's surface mining and shallow mining, where you're just picking with pickaxes off the mountain. and you might even be able to stick a couple sticks of dynamite into the rock and blow something loose. And then there's deep shaft mining,
which is the kind that leads to Silent Hill.
right? The stuff that causes fires underground and stuff like that. Well, it turns out by 1907, geologists determined that the initial amounts of minerals and gold they found at Monte Cristo only went down 500 feet.
That sucks.
So all of these people, including Rockefeller and Trump, showed up. Senior times 3. That's amazing to me that Trump's grandfather was like well alive in the 1890s. I mean, he is like really old, but like it makes you realize how like 3 generations, like we're just 3 generations from like cowboys and like minor 49er stuff. Like this is not that far away, especially here in Washington. This is like your grandpa knew guys like this, and it's kind of like yikes, that's weird. But so all these people had all this money wrapped up into it, and find out there's nothing there besides that initial hole that everyone got in the into the 1800s. There's no gold.
Yeah, I watched enough Gold Rush on Discovery Channel via force in proximity of my father to know that 500 feet is nothing.
Yeah, it's super. I mean, people mine almost a mile down, or not almost a mile down, but pretty low, pretty deep into the ground for ore. And this is the early 1900s. By 1907, which was one of the first financial shocks of the 20th century, Rockefeller completely pulls out and most of the business interests leave. Then a giant flood washes out the road and destroys the town. The town burns down in 1983.
Why do they keep burning down?
Because there's no fire department. And also probably, insurance fraud. That's a good point, too. But there is no fire departments in these places. You have to have money in a tax base to fund a fire department. And if you're all on, like, wells that are, like, hand-pumped, you're on your own. You're just going to have to fight that fire yourself.
Did people die in this fire?
No one died. No deaths in this one, sadly.
You say that like you're disappointed. No one died.
Well, you think like this is like an old-timey town. At least some, like the old drunk would have gotten burned or something.
He said, I want ghosts.
I want ghosts in my ghost town. Well, they stepped up. They turned Monte Cristo into a historical site. It's still a place, but the road up to Monte Cristo is unpassable to vehicles, and the shore is extremely dangerous because of the river flowing through it.
So you have to hike
into the town on foot.
How much is the elevation gain?
Enough to be a bridge across that is completely unpassable, and people risk walking across it, but it's very unstable.
So is this a historical site that is unmanned? Like, there's not, like, a tour guide.
No, there's no tour guide in Monte Cristo. There's a tour guide at the bottom of the hill before you go up.
There's no gift shop in Monte Cristo.
You're not going to get an I ate a Monte Cristo at Monte Cristo t-shirt. You're not going to get one of those. They also turns out, mining is extremely polluting and very dangerous to the environment. And they found out that they're in the area that they mine called Glacial Basin, which, where all of our water comes from in Snohomish County, or some of it comes from, was poisoned with arsenic and dioxin, and they began the cleanup in 2012.
Oh, good. So, honestly,
for like 100 years, everyone's been drinking arsenic water from this river system.
It's really unsurprising.
So that's another tie-in for our listeners, is that living here in Washington as much as anywhere else, you will find that the water, the land, is often polluted by these giant companies or many people who were doing environmental destruction, essentially. Because mining is just nothing but environmental destruction. You can't really mine without like blowing something up or tearing something up.
I'm a little worried about the arsenic levels in the fishies.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit
in
more.
Snohomish River, in the Stillaguamish River Basin. So, what did we learn from the ghost town? Fred Trump, Rockefeller, arsenic. Our favorite combination.
And Trump. Don't forget him.
We can't forget Trump, folks. He's still out there. So yeah, it's there's still a cleanup going on to this day, and the mines are still there. None of them are not. Many of the mines did not cave in, so they're just there, and people can live in them if they want to, and no one would ever know.
So you're telling me there's a good chance there's a cryptid in Monte Cristo?
Now that you say it like that, the chances are exceptionally higher because of the
Bigfoot
caves.
could be hanging out in Monte Cristo.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. Good to know.
She says, check my search pattern, widen the search pattern.
Someone call up that one canceled show from Discovery.
Where
Let
they're
them know.
just walking around trying to find Bigfoot. Well, I do have one other town that is close to where we live. You'll recognize it, Michaela, or the name of it. It's called the Nooksack River Mining Camp.
Well, I don't recognize that name, but I do recognize Nooksack.
Right.
Yes. But this is a camp.
A mining camp.
Is it a permanent camp? Like it has
It's
buildings?
It was. So, there was a mine. Yet again, mines were like the NFT or Bitcoin of the 1800s.
No, because they're real things.
No. Because this one was a scam. This one was a certified hustle.
So you're saying gold mines.
Just mines in general. Because what happens is you have to buy and pay in a lot of money to get people to give you money to go and get more gold. So this Nooksack River camp, the founders of this camp said they found a bunch of gold in the mine. And they were like, in Mount Sumas, this is in Mount Sumas area. And they just said, we just need some extra financiers. So what they did, they went to go and got some local money, built a nice little hotel up there, built like all these little things for the mining workers and this and that, just like show that they were serious. Then they invited all these big wigs from San Francisco and Seattle, some from Denver. They come up via train. This is I think this is the 1880s it was like the 1880s or the 1900s, early 1900s. Like this is the end of the century, beginning of the other one, the 20th. And they have the 360 or 70 investors come stay at the hotel. And they're like, guys, look how crazy it is. They have them have a real nice time. They have the girls. They bring them from Bellingham, actually.
Infamous sex worker town,
Bellingham.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, it's still to this day, like, that's the rep. But they bring those ladies up. They treat these investors to a great time. They start getting them to, like, we're going to put so much money into this mine. And look at all that gold you found from that mine. Well, some investor was like, this is kind of a weird thing that they haven't shown us any, like, people pulling gold out of the mountain physically. We've seen all the gold that has been melted down or like bullion from the mountain. We have not seen the actual gold streaks. So someone took a sample and brought it back down to San Francisco with them and found out that they had just taken gold from another mine and thrown it all over the town.
Yeah, sounds right.
And by the time everyone found out, the guys who founded the mining camp disappeared. never to be seen from again.
I'm not super surprised. It just feels right.
I mean, like I said, to me, it's like crypto. It's like, oh, if you're willing to invest your money in that, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I do see what you're saying, that like the gold rush was the original crypto craze.
Right. It was just like, oh, I got a buddy who's got a mine in like down the road. You want to give him some money so we can keep mining? It's like, can I see the gold, please?
It's a little bit like an MLM scheme, because like if you're the guy selling the shovels,
right,
you can recruit your buddies.
Well, how Seattle was built as a city, basically.
Selling shovels,
yeah. Like the entire gold rush was just everyone just selling shovels to the guys that were getting scammed. Yeah. I'm going to Alaska. Sure. No one's saying there's no gold up there. Everyone's just like, here's some. You want to buy some jeans? You want to buy a canvas hat? So that's what happened right up the river a little bit. It's everywhere.
So is that town still standing?
Yeah, they still preserve it. The mine's still open because they had the mine cut out and everything.
So here's a question. Let me talk about the housing crisis in Bellingham. Why don't we just take it and make it not a ghost town anymore?
She's asking the hard questions.
Why don't we give me a house?
Give me a house.
A house for less than $500,000.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't live up there if they paid me. That place is... Ugh. It's like at the base of a mountain. I'm good. I would prefer not to live in a mining camp. All the way like 40 minutes away. No thanks. It's like closer. It's literally closer to like it's closer to New Halem than it is to Bellingham, which is not my favorite.
Okay,
path. Another gold mining town called Bodie.
Bodie?
Bodie.
Okay.
It's in Republic. I don't know if you know where Republic is.
I have no idea. But if I were to guess, based off the name, I would say southwest near the Cascades. So like on the east side of West, near the Columbia River. Am I right?
No.
Oh, dang.
You're actually like mirror image to the, like if you put a mirror image on a diagonal, it's the other way around. Bodie is near a town called Republic. Republic is in Ferry County, which is northeast Washington.
So kind of Tonasket area?
Yeah, like between Winthrop and like Spokane, like that big long stretch, and which is a huge empty space. But there used to be towns here. In 1888, two folks found a gold mine of high quality gold in Republic's Nob Hill mine, which I have to mention, they recently found a gold deposit. A Canadian company found a gold deposit in Republic that valued up to about $1 trillion worth of gold.
What?
So, yeah. So they're going to be eating off of that for a long time.
How did the Canadians get in?
Because it's an open zoning area. I know. My mom and I were talking about this. She's like, how can a foreign company own American land American gold?
This is what we fought the British for. We stole this entire state from Canada. They can't steal it back.
We forgot the face of our fathers. So we forgot what they did this whole thing for. Not for the Canadians to come in and steal our gold. So they found a mine in 1888. They found really high quality gold there. But then by the end of the century in 1907, the first financial panic of the 20th century happened. Gold prices dumped.
Is that Nixon brought us off the gold standard.
Yeah,
right?
and that was the 70s. Like it was because of how, I mean, there's many reasons, but one of the reasons is explicitly this. Like money that's tied by gold currency.
We laugh in the face of Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah, where's all the founding guys? Where's the Tea Party guys?
Wasn't he the one that was like insane about the gold standard?
I think it was
or was
him
it
and
Hamilton?
Yeah, I think
one
it
of
was
those
Hamilton.
two.
The nerd Hamilton.
I didn't watch the musical.
And
I can tell you.
And then the guy who shot him literally did treason and got away with it. Burr was like, "What if I did all the crimes and still didn't go to jail for it?"
Hamilton knew.
What a Chad. The Chad Burr versus the Virgin Hamilton. But yeah, like gold is very unstable as a currency. People always were like, it's gold. Reality, it's not that stable. It's actually very finicky, just like everything else. And they went and had 2 depressions. The 1907 depression, one where essentially American capitalism had to work together to undo. It was the Panic of 1907. And then, of course, the big one, 1929, the stock market collapses and plunges our entire global society into a nearly 2 decades of barbarism and violence that we probably will never recover from as a species to this day. And so these guys had to pack it all up because they found the gold mine and no one wanted to buy gold.
Really sucks. Can you imagine?
Imagine finding the finest, most pure gold stock in like West or in Eastern Washington and then be like, oh, no one wants to buy this right now. So embarrassing.
Who put the curse upon your family? Because,
right.
like, who did you make mad back in Mesopotamia? Because someone wants you dead.
Right.
Or just at least unsuccessful.
Right. Like ancient, like this is a like genetic curse from like, from like 500 BC. Like this, you just like your ancestors stole the wrong rib from somebody and just was like, your family will be successful, but will be close to success, but will never be successful. And just like, Mom, I found this great gold deposit. We're gonna make so much money. We're rich. The stock market collapses twice in your lifetime. To me, it's funny because the gold thing is kind of like we were just talking about, like NFT, that kind of like mindset. There's a lot of just guys out there trying to make a quick buck.
I think that's the American way.
Right. But like, it's like on paper, he should have been rich. Those guys should have been rich.
Yeah.
But because of the way the economy works, they are not rich. Like everyone got in on the gold action and the stock market collapses. And then you're like, well, gold's not worth anything.
Despite its delusion of the opposite, America has never been a meritocracy.
You've never actually do earn your way to the top. And everyone who's at the top, like J.D. Rockefeller, and what's the guy's name? Chase, J.P. Morgan, my bad. J.D. Rockefeller and J.P. Morgan. What a weird...
You are successful in this country when you have enough money that when you lose money, it doesn't matter.
When you can leave a whole town.
And that's how you become successful, which is to say...
When you can just tell Everett, yeah, I don't care that you guys are going to go through a recession.
Yeah. Which is to say you're only successful if you have money.
Right.
Like, it's hard.
Right. So they built this camp up. They recovered about $1.2 million of gold in that time period, in the 30s. And then they sold what they had left and left. All the buildings are still there. All the equipment's still there. All the town that they built with the schoolhouse, that was also a saloon when the kids left.
Sick.
I know.
I love it. Did they keep the whiskey inside the schoolhouse while the children were there?
They locked it up.
Did they have to kick... This is a better question. Did they have to kick the old town drunk off the school steps in the morning when the kids showed up?
That's a good question.
Here's a better one. Did the kids walk into their one-room classroom and just see piles of puke in the corner, you know?
Yeah, and it's like the early 1900s, so there was
Yeah.
like no like we care about the kids or anything like that. It was just like, Harold, get the hell out of the saloon.
A
The
thin-
kids are trying to learn.
A thin dusting of cocaine on their schoolwork.
Casual cocaine usage. People are drinking absinthe and just passed out. Just
Buckets of spittoons.
ooh. Yeah, these guys were not great. I'm not gonna lie. There's Gettysburg.
I love how creative people are. People are so creative.
Right. And guess what? It's not named after the town in Pennsylvania where the famous battle happened. It's named after Robert Getty.
Oh, okay. So we didn't want to switch it up. We didn't want to say Gettystown.
No. We wanted to call it. This is in Clallam County, and he built a lumber mill when he was about 30 years old, and he built a post office, and then the postmaster in 1890 embezzled. In 1912. Embezzled $814 from the U.S. government and and served a 1-hour sentence in prison.
Okay. That's a lot of money back then.
Yeah, in 1912, that's like
How much
a
did
couple
you say?
$1,000. $814.
$814 in 1912 is worth $25,000 today.
And she served 1
An
hour.
hour.
For-
Man, if
she
I could
committed
steal,
a federal crime and only served an hour.
if
Because she was a woman, they said, though.
if I could steal, man, misogyny works for you sometimes.
In the early 1900s, they're like, we're not sending a lady to federal prison. Just let her sit in the jail cell. She learned her lesson.
If I could steal half of my salary, and serve 1 hour in jail,
Was it worth?
oh yeah,
Was it worth?
oh yeah.
We're doing crimes, folks. Yeah, well, Ida decided that was worth the risk. I mean, I feel like if I was the postmaster, or the secretary to the postmaster or whatever, I would also just be like,
That's for me.
who's gonna stop you? You're the only person who looks through the mail.
Matt is never getting job.
Never
at
getting a
the
federal
post
job.
office.
No, that was a joke. That was parody. I would never steal money from the mail. So we're going to dip into the other side of it, government projects. Washington was home to a lot of government projects. Michaela, are you familiar with the place called Hanford, Washington?
Oh, is that the nuclear site?
That is...
Oh, I love
The
that.
nuclear
It's nothing wrong happens there ever. Nothing weird and I don't know, fucked up. Like, what else am I gonna say? Like, nothing radiation positive.
You mean when you go to Tri-Cities and you drink a glass of water, you're not actually shortening your life because you're drinking uranium runoff?
Listen, I'm never going to the Tri-Cities, so it's not a problem for me.
You lucky you. Damn. So we in Washington, I will say, most people know about the story of Hanford, Washington. Hanford, Washington was a site where they developed the radioactive material for the nuclear weapons that were used in Nagasaki and Hiroshima, Japan, during the Second World War. Washington has a very complex and deep history with the Second World War and militarism overall in the
Japan and
Yeah.
Japanese people.
yeah, explicitly Japanese people and people of Asian descent and people of indigenous descent.
We said, give us your teriyaki and then get in the camp.
we literally did do that to
I
them.
know.
Though. It's so fucked up, but it's so like it's one of those things that I'm not proud of as an American, but also as a person from Washington. because it's a part of our legacy forever. Like, we helped make those weapons, and we made them for a long time. And this town was cleared out in the 1940s under secrecy. No one knew why they were getting evicted. So imagine, it's the middle of the night. The government, a GI, one of those steely-faced 18, 19, 20 to 26-year-olds, knocks on your door. You're just a plain old farmer from Hanford, Washington. And he goes, "Sir, you have to leave. Collect your family and your possessions. We are relocating you." That's what happened to make this bomb. And they call the town now 100F. It's on a grid square, and they call it 100F. And it's completely abandoned.
How many people were living in this town? Probably like 200.
Yeah, about 262.
Okay.
Yeah, according to the report here.
What's wild to me is not necessarily the fact that they were like, hey, this town of 260 people or something, which is a very small town. Granted, it's less people than were in my high school. And
Right.
I went to a small high school of like 100 people graduating class. So,
Yep.
anyway,
Well-
it's not so much that it's weird that they like kicked everybody out of this town. It's that the fact that they chose to do it in the middle of Eastern Washington, which is almost entirely empty.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you couldn't find a grid on the map where there weren't people, because I promise there are.
Yes. And to that point, Michaela, because you are banging on something metal there. Like, you're hitting on a plate that shouldn't be there. You're like, what's going on here? They gave them 30 days in 1943 to relocate. They said a sparsely located area and condemned the town of what was then known as White Bluffs and Hanford. Then, this is like, I'm like, America is just, it always puts the icing and the cherry on top. It relocated a tribe of indigenous people known as the Wanapum, and forced them to live outside of the areas that were assigned to them during their treaty rights.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised that they even bothered to move them, because I think it's very within the purview
They would have just been like, let's just see what happens.
to use them as like,
Human
oh, these
test.
people were exposed to radium
Right.
and radiation fallout for.
They said, we don't know what happened. We don't understand what happened. It says that they used to hunt and fish along the Columbia River where it connects to the Bend. And if you've been to Tri-Cities, it's literally like a fork of rivers meeting each other. These tribes were forced to leave leave their places of worship, because this is also where they practice their religious ceremonies. And then the whole town was razed except one building. It was Hanford High School. And do you know what Hanford High School is used by today?
Is it going to be like, well, okay, let me work through my logic, right? So it's military. And what's the most fucked up thing that could be stored in a high school? Something that kills children regularly. So I'm thinking like an armory of automatic weapons, perhaps the atomic bomb itself.
Close, but not really. Actually, for federal police to practice SWAT tactics.
Oh, well, that's way less bad.
But
than
let
I
me
thought.
show you what the high school this is what the high school used to look like.
Okay.
And then this is what it looks like now, that little bottom picture. They practice SWAT tactics in like a completely like burnt out school.
Yeah, I want to say for everybody who cannot see these pictures, which is everybody, you could look it up. I don't know. It's like originally a white, kind of like a stone
Stucco,
mezza.
almost like
Yeah.
old school, Art Deco kind of almost.
Yeah, high school. It looks fine. It's kind of boring, but nothing crazy. But this after photo looks like
Demonic.
it was bombed out. We're like in the middle of Iraq or something. It's like covered in ash and soot. Like
They
somebody
just set it on fire just to see.
The white is gone. It's
Right.
only gray now.
I just wanted to share that with you because it is kind of amazing because you kind of go, what's the worst thing that could happen? And it's like, we could, blow up. Another town called Cosmos. This is another creepy town that got flooded out. It was a logging town and it got flooded. And now all the buildings, this is out in Tacoma area, all the buildings were underwater. And then
That's fun. I think that's cool.
and then they flooded the valley for the.
Listen, I love when nature reclaims itself.
I for one love it.
I think
But this
awesome.
happened in the 1940s, and they said the Tacoma Power wanted the dam to be built at Mossy Rock, beginning at the falls near Cosmos, and that made them flood the whole plain. just get rid of it. I just love when you just flood whole towns. I got two more. I want to talk about a town that is very creepy. Got a very creepy energy. It's called Melmont. It's in Mount Rainier National Park.
Ooh, I love that place.
I know you do. It was founded in 1900. There were mines that produced 4% of Pierce County's coal.
Yikes.
Anytime coal mining is included in your economy,
80%? Is that what you said?
no,
40?
no, yeah, it's 4%.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said
She thought it was just like a slave coal mine where they just force people in.
I just imagined the amount of
Soot.
coal pollution that would happen if that place was producing like a majority of your coal for the
Right.
entire county.
Right.
But okay.
The town had a hotel, a saloon, a butcher shop, a store, and a train depot, along with houses for the workers that were employed for the Northwest Improvement Company, a subsidiary of Northern Pacific Union, Northern Pacific Railroad. The houses were actually self-segregated by race.
Self-segregated?
The neighborhood, because what happened is the actual so this is the weird thing too. The actual company, which is technically allowing it, which means that the company's allowing it, but the company is allowing the management or the people who are doing the clerk work to do racism in this town.
Well, this was 1900.
Yeah, this is
correct?
early 1900s.
I mean, everybody was.
Right. I mean, it's normal, but I'm just
Yeah.
saying, even in this, company town scenario, you still are well, the blacks are over there, the Czechs are over there, the Russians are over here.
So what I'm hearing is it's a Tesla facility.
Right, it's Tesla. Just kidding, Elon. Parody. Please do not sue us, because I know you're that petty.
Didn't he lose his lawsuit?
Yes, he
We're
lost.
allowed to say that.
That's true. Actually,
It's been proven.
Elon,
before.
you're a big racist piece of shit.
Well, I don't know if you can say that, but you can say Tesla.
Tesla, the company,
Facilities,
is
worse.
actually that. Not Elon personally. I don't know. That was just me joking.
Also, he's a public figure.
Yeah, but he's also from South Africa, and his dad owns an emerald mine. So, figure it out, people.
You listen.
These guys used to be the bad guy on every 80s movie.
Listen, there is a statue having someone who had gone to journalism school, me, there is a statute of libel that many people forget about. It's not only demonstrably, yes, thank you. It's not only that it has to be demonstrably false, you have to prove that there was a loss of income as a result. And I don't think that two people sitting at their kitchen table in Bellingham, Washington is really going to result in loss of income for Elon Musk. Beyond the fact that he is a public person, and therefore there are even higher standards against libel.
Right. True. Melmont, destroyed by a fire. It started its downturn in 1918 because of diesel electric power.
So there was a diesel electric fire?
No, railroads switched from diesel, and then no one used coal anymore.
So they said, bye-bye. We don't need you.
Company town.
Okay, if nobody uses coal anymore, then why is there a coal train
running downtown Bellingham?
running through our town all the damn time?
What in the hell is going on?
Somebody's using coal to put it in their barbecues. So we have somebody's got to
Someone's doing something. Someone's doing something. Well, it was destroyed in a fire, but there's still buildings and foundations there. And Melmont Ghost Town Hike Trailhead is still on Google Maps, so you can find it and start walking it if you want. I'll let you look through that.
Oh, that's
just
fine.
A couple of the pictures there.
I mean, oh, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Having this, I don't know what this looks like, a giant fireplace in the middle of the forest.
Yeah, it's kind of old school.
And some rickety looking bridges.
Yeah, I wouldn't go across
fun.
that bridge. I do not like bridges.
I
live on an island with one bridge on, one bridge off, and I hate driving over that bridge every time.
I'm going to say it again. I think there's some insurance fraud going on. I don't think that okay. I understand that most of these are happening in the 1900s, early 1900s, and fire departments were not really a thing, and a lot of things burned down back then, but every single town
is
being burned down.
Yeah, and also, people, let's not always forget that some of the companies still own the property when these fires break out.
I guess when we really think about it,
it's probably the company.
Seattle has also burned down.
Yeah, vast metropolitan complexes also burned down.
San Francisco has burned
Chicago,
down.
New York City.
They just rebuild those, so it's fine. We won't investigate insurance fraud. The statute of limitations is probably up anyway.
She says, this is weird. I have here one area called Franklin, Washington. Franklin was established in 1886 and was a town made up of mostly black laborers from Missouri, Illinois, Kentucky, and Tennessee in search of good paying jobs and free transportation. With the white miners who went on strike took exception to the African American strike breakers, and then the tensions grew for a month and a half. In early July 4th, we love it. Born on the 4th of July, baby. A riot broke out that resulted in the deaths of 2 people.
Oh.
There's your deaths.
Wait, black people or white?
Yes, black people. And the governor,
either is bad for the record.
The record, yeah. The governor had to call up the National Guard to restore order in the town. In 1885, the Seattle and Walla Walla Railroad extended from Black Diamond to the town, allowing most of the coal that was extracted. A lot of coal mining in this area. I'm very nervous by the amount of coal that was extracted from Washington. It's just like, hey, all those guys who live in the Appalachians, just send them to Washington.
Yeah.
It says that on August 24th, 1894, the worst mine disaster in King County history occurred at the Oregon Improvement Company in Franklin. That's the same company that used to own that other town we were just talking about. Notice they're all owned by the same company. It says that a fire caused 37 miners to suffocate in the mine. A jury later found that the fire had been intentionally set, but the person responsible had also perished in the disaster.
Oh, wow.
But
Wait, how many people died?
37.
Oh, that's a lot.
That's a lot. In the 1880s, the late 1880s, like 1894. By the early 20th century, demand fell and mining became more difficult, causing mines to shut down. The post office in Franklin closed in 1916, and by 1919, all mining had ceased in Franklin. A few families remained, including a family named the Moores. Ernest Moore, who wrote a book about the town, later wrote a book about his African American family's experience in the coal miner who came west, which was written in 1982. From late 1940 to 1971, Palmer Coking Coal Company, say that 3 times fast, mined both surface and underground coal at the town site in Franklin because no one was there anymore. The mining ended in 1971 when a coal car bridge across the Green River was blasted in a ceremony attended by many local dignitaries. In 1984 to 1985, Green River Community College's archaeology department, led by Gerald Headland and Mark Vernon, conducted digs at the abandoned town site. The report From Smoke to Mist, an archaeological study of Franklin, Washington, a turn of the century coal company town, was published in 1994, which relied on the research by historian John Hanscom. So this is one of those Green River areas too. Green River has a lot of activity on it, and I forgot how busy that whole back area used to be before,
It's still busy.
It's really busy.
It's a major area.
Yeah. Very creepy area though, back when you get to the woods, like to the edge of Black Diamond and just like the forest out there.
There's a reason for it. So many bad vibes. I've got like 40 women who are lost out there, or who were at one point.
Right. And then I got one cursed town. This is the last one.
Oh, this one's cursed.
This is a cursed town.
Okay.
It's called Govan. This is in eastern Washington. And it says, the schoolhouse in Govan was built in 1905 and shut down in the 1940s. The steeple on the building toppled over in 2019. 2 fires came through Govan, the most recent in 1974, that ultimately led to the town's complete abandonment. As of 2019, the population in the area, not the town, but the area, is 3 people.
Wow.
Govan, before
Some
it was
wrong turn shit.
You'll see that school, and you'll be like, yes. Govan, before it was abandoned, was the site of the murder of Judge J.A. Lewis and his wife, who were killed with an axe in their home. It was a robbery. It says robbery, as they were quite wealthy, was considered the motive. It referred to at the time as one of the most atrocious acts of murder in the state, in the history of the state. And later, in 1941, a woman was found murdered on her farm in Govan.
This is way too small of a town.
Around the same time her son went missing.
So her son killed her.
The son's body was found
Dang it.
in the fields 8 years later with an axe in it.
8 years later? Like, had it been there for 8 years?
Probably. I mean, it's if they abandoned the town in, it says 1974.
This is too small. This is too small of a town to have.
Someone did that.
That much crime.
Someone did that. Someone in that town did that.
Well, yeah, obviously.
And
but
here's the.
I don't think it's as cursed as you made it out to seem.
2
It
sets
kind
of murders, though.
Well, yeah, that is cursed for sure. I mean this church. Wow, forgot that word. This church reminds me of the church in Resident Evil Village. So it's not super creepy to me, but
Not super creepy to me.
But I think
Does
that-
anyone remember that game, folks? Bad source. She says that's not too creepy to her.
well, yeah. But the crime rate being that high and for such violent crime as well,
It's
a little much.
I'm not gonna lie. The first murders were probably. I'm not trying to do a crime podcast. I hate that stuff mostly, but I'm gonna go on the record and say if someone died violently like that in the early 1900s, it was probably a teenager who did it, and then they did the crime later when they were older again, and then they just like drifted away because
Maybe.
or just someone likes to kill people
I
in
guess
this
because
town.
I feel like axes. I feel like you're saying this because they were both killed by axes.
Yeah.
But I feel like an axe was a very common murder
That's
weapon
true.
back then.
That's true. I just think that the killing in pairs thing too,
It's
they're not
possible.
they're not killing one person, they're killing two people and then they're killing them. It's not like, "Oh, I'm just going to kill them and just put them away over here." It's like, "No, I'm just going to leave them out in the middle of the fucking field and just be like, let the animals find them. I don't care."
Yeah.
It's kind of vicious. It's a little vicious.
It is.
So, but it's like the time isn't that far apart from early 1900s to 1940 is a little while, but that person, if they did it in their teens and still lived in that town,
They're likely dead.
I know now, but
Yeah.
then I'm saying when the murder was done,
Yeah.
the last murder was done.
So you're thinking that he did it as a teen,
Yeah.
this person.
And then he was like, "I'm gonna lie low, lay low, I'm gonna lay low, I'm gonna lay low, I'm not gonna do that again. That's awful what I did or whatever." And then they relapsed. That happens. Shit
Yeah, it's
happens.
possible.
It's pretty messed up though, no matter which way you slice it. Oof, bad pun. I'm sorry. Oops. So, what did you learn today, Michaela? This is a long, boring episode, and I'm sorry for making it so long. But what did you learn today?
I think there's a disappointing amount of ghosts in these ghost towns.
Not enough ghosts.
Not enough ghosts.
Well, we'll probably find an episode where we can focus in on real ghosts, or what I'm going to openly disclose, I'm a skeptic of ghosts, so what we think is real ghost. And then Michaela can tell us. But that will be an episode coming up.
I have no ghost episodes in the roster. We don't know when the ghost is gonna happen, but it will happen.
There will be ghosts. I mean, it's this place is literally like the Indian burial ground in Poltergeist.
Yeah.
We will run into a ghost eventually.
That's true.
This whole state is basically that one house. So we will run into ghosts in our story eventually. But until
Yeah.
then,
I think we should go to one personally.
what, a ghost town or a
Yeah.
ghost?
No, a ghost town.
Oh.
There's one just down the road. We should go.
Those buildings are extremely unsafe.
I'm not saying we have to go inside.
It's true. It's true. Okay. We should look into it for sure.
Yeah, road trip.
Road trip into rural Whatcom County.
Or Skagit.
Or Skagit. Well, the Skagit one is gone. It's very gone.
Oh, it's like,
It's gone.
oh,
They just learned it's
Well,
over. It's too
disappointing.
bad. Yeah, I tried to find it on a map. It just disappeared. There's no traces of it anymore.
And I also learned we gotta go to Hot Springs.
We gotta find a hot spring. I know there's a hot spring somewhere around here. I gotta get my back unmessed up.
Yeah.
Get that good warm geothermal heat before Inslee puts a geothermal power plant on top of it and we can't use our hot springs
Listen,
anymore.
I hope he does.
Low key, that would probably save us a lot of money.
Don't even joke
As long
about
as he
it.
doesn't give it over to PSC, we'll be fine. But Michaela,
Yeah.
thank you for going to another tour of ghost towns with me.
You're welcome. Thanks for taking me.
And to our guests and our listeners, thank you. Have a good one.
Bye.